Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues, and thank you to Rabbi Avrohom Leventhal, who's joining me today. Rabbi Leventhal is the executive director of Leman Achai, a fascinating chesed organization located in Israel, working out of Ramat Beit Shemesh, but actually nationally now, providing services to 600 to 700 families on a regular basis, and now during the war, to tens of thousands of people. Rabbi Leventhal, as you'll notice, is not located in his office at this moment. He's outside in Kikar Chatufim in a hostage square. And Rabbi, welcome to the show today, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure, Rabbi Matanki. One of my favorite places outside of Eretz Yisrael to be is in Kins and West Rogers Park. My visits to your shul and your kehillah are always warm. Despite even a Chicago winter, I always feel the warmth and the unity among your kehillah. And of course, there's always Romanian and Kens, which help as well. But it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Well, thank you. Before we go any further on talking about your organization, Leman Achai, and the projects that you do with Smart Chesed, let's talk about where you're at. Right behind you, we can see the clock. Maybe you can even swivel a little bit to show exactly what it is. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Behind me is the clock. The clock is ticking away from the hostages, how long the hostages have been gone, have been away from us. And here in Kikar Chatufim in Hostage Square, there are many different memorials. There's the table, without getting anyone too upset from moving around. I'll try to move at one point slowly. You see the table as well that's set, a place for each missing person. And as we know, Kol HaMekayim Nefesh Achat, every person is their own world. So every hostage that is missing, that is not in their home where they should be, is an entire world for us. And the Jewish people and the Jewish world internationally have been united because of everything that's happening here in Eretz Yisrael, all of the situation. And we don't feel that it's us and them, that you're there and we're here. We feel your hug from across the world. And particularly here in the Hostage Square, where there are families that come and go, they meet with people, they tell their stories, they ask us to daven and to do whatever we can to bring them back.
I thank you very much for explaining that. And just to even give a little more background, Hostage Square is right across from the Kiryat, the Israeli equivalent of the Pentagon. And it's there on purpose.
Yes, it's not only because of the Pentagon and the Kiryat. I don't know if this was intentional, but it's certainly very meaningful that this is in the same area that a lot of the disunity and hatred was happening before October 7th. I often say that the Jewish people of October 6th and the Jewish people of October 8th are two different nations totally. And it was not far from where I'm standing before October 7th, where there were fist fights and there were really violent protests sometimes about situations in the state of Israel. From October 7th and on, this has been a place of unity, as everywhere in the state of Israel has been.
And let's talk a little bit about what Leman Achai is doing now because of the war. Normally, you provided services to the 700 families, and we'll talk about what kind of services those were. But first, what are you doing now as a result of the war?
So that's a great question. People ask me, how do you go from poverty to war? And when I say we're involved in war, we're involved in every aspect. From the morning of October 8th until today, I received calls from the Army, from communities of displaced families, from families of soldiers, reservists who are on the front lines for various types of help. So why would they call a poverty organization is always the first question I get. And the answer was from the Second Lebanon War in 2006. There were, at that point, the people affected were only in the north. There were Hezbollah rockets raining on northern Israel, and thousands of refugees literally fled in the middle of the night. And many of them came to Beit Shemesh. And I was asked by the then deputy mayor of Beit Shemesh to arrange their temporary shelter in Beit Shemesh. And literally within several hours on a Motzei Shabbat, we had 1,600 people set in places, in school buildings and in community centers with bedding and everything that they needed for their 6-week sojourn away from their homes. And because we were able to mobilize, we're organized, we have over 500 volunteers, we get things done. That's why by this war, the army, people in the army knew to call us Rabbanim, and community leaders from the displaced cities in the South also knew that they could count on us to be there for their families, for their communities in this time of need.
And
just on
a
more, okay, so on a more, to be more specific, for the soldiers, you have to imagine the regular standing army of Israel is approximately 176,000 soldiers. Overnight, 350,000 reservists were called up. Actually, 300,000 were called up, 350 reported. That tells you who Am Yisrael is. And that means that they didn't have a lot of the basic supplies, meaning flashlights, certain thermal underwear, things that they needed, power banks to power their phones in the field. And we were asked to procure those through various sources, to get them sent from the United States, to procure them from suppliers here in Israel. At the same time, within a few days, as families were being sent away from their homes, they showed up on our doorstep, and we found them temporary shelter with empty apartments. We helped them settle in the hotels, whatever, again, the essentials that these families needed, because they literally ran with the shirts on their back from their homes, and it was too dangerous to go back and retrieve anything for the first couple of weeks. For the families of the reservists, we were there to help with the children. We were there to help for Shabbat packages. If there was, again, anything that the wives and sometimes mothers of reservists need, we were the address to go to, the number to call.
So you were able to help about 30,000 soldiers, I understand.
Correct.
How is it different between week 1 and now we're already at day 109?
Okay, great question as well. Week 1, it was those basics that the army didn't have or wasn't able to get right away. Again, the flashlights, tactical gloves, things like that, things that just the army didn't have enough. They were opening their supply cabinets, they were getting restocked. So we were able to get most of it, actually, in the first 2 weeks came from the United States. There were kehilots all over America that sent. The first shipment that came to me was 36 very large duffel bags with probably $100,000 worth of equipment that I was able to get through and give the flashlights and the power banks and protein bars and socks and gloves and things that the soldiers needed. Fast forward more, deeper into the war, where the army was able to provide most of what was needed. So the things that we were offering for the soldiers were beef jerky, protein bars, things that they were able to eat to give high energy in the fields. We were also able to give them, as the weather turned colder, thermal underwear, thermal gloves, thermal socks, hats, neck scarves. There's a certain Israeli neck scarf called a chamsavar. It warms the neck and the head at the same time. We provided those, and the soldiers knew that they could come. After a while, there was a shortage of tactical equipment, which we had to be very careful about. Any tactical equipment, meaning a vest or a helmet, has to meet the approval and muster of the Israeli army, because there's a lot of substandard equipment out there, and people, in the goodness of their hearts, were sending shipments of helmets and vests that were literally not bulletproof. And much of that got stuck in the airport. So we were only working with suppliers who had the stamp of approval of the IDF.
And today, are you still providing the vests and the helmets and the...
On a much smaller basis. There are units that have not gone into Gaza or on the Lebanon border yet, that are going to be called up in the next weeks to months. And they've asked us to help. Again, we don't work with individual soldiers or their mothers or grandmothers who are worrying at home. We take the requests from supply officers or commanders from within the IDF.
And so they reach out to you, and today you're providing some of that equipment. Are you still giving energy bars and beef jerky and those kinds of things?
Yes, I think we've given out close to 5,000 packs of beef jerky. Protein bars, probably twice that amount. I just got a shipment today. A group came in from the United States. They brought 13 suitcases. I think 4 of them, 70 pounds each, are protein bars. And they'll be going out.
But why doesn't the Israeli army have that for the soldiers?
It's not that they don't. They provide what are called manot krav, which are field rations. But they want food that is lightweight, not perishable, and they don't have the sources that we might in order to get the protein bars and the beef jerky.
Is that, and so people are still, it sounds so very strange. You'll excuse
Yes,
me,
it does.
We have such an advanced army that can do such amazing things, and we have to get beef jerky to them.
Well, it's not that they have to. It just it enhances their life. They can have a can of tuna, which has the same protein as of a pack of jerky, but a can of tuna is much more bulky and it's not as tasty as the beef jerky. So if it's a little, people donate a little bit, and it can go a long way with the soldiers. They can put it in their uniform. It weighs literally 4 or 5 ounces, and it's very high protein. It's very filling, and it can keep them going for hours. We've also provided a lot of coffee to soldiers in the field. It's not that the Army won't provide it. It's sometimes that the Army is concerned about the real essentials, the guns, the ammunition, the tactical equipment, that they leave the other things to the goodness of Klal Yisrael. I'm not going to get into a discussion or a judgment of that, but Baruch Hashem, we're here to help.
And so I would assume you're handling 30,000. I would assume there are other chesed organizations that are filling in, that all the chesed organizations have come together to help out with
Yes.
this.
Many organizations nationwide are doing unbelievable things. Program that we're doing together with good-hearted people from America. At first, people thought it was very strange until you explain it. I wish I had one with me. Maybe I'll send you a picture. It's a bear that has a recording device. And we send it to Chayalim, to reservists. It's foldable. It can fit in your pocket, in your coat pocket. It has a recording device. You send a message to your children. The children hear the message and can send a message back. So someone said to me, it's 2024. Have you ever heard of a cell phone? I said, number one, psychologists have told us that the being able to hold the teddy bear is very important for the father and for the children. And more importantly, most soldiers on the front line are not permitted to bring their cell phone, but they're certainly allowed to bring a foldable stuffed bear.
So we have soldiers on the front with their teddy bears, basically.
That's right. But these are not, these teddy bears have as much power for our soldiers as their machine guns, because it's the love and care and connection with their children and families at home.
Now, all of this is a testament to the fact that Leman Achai, which you've been at the helm of for many years already, is an organization that is so well recognized and so well equipped to be able to pivot as you did for the war. But you want to tell us a little bit more about Leman Achai, what makes your chesed organization for people in poverty so unique?
So our philosophy is a hands up as opposed to a handout, meaning that if a family comes to us in financial crisis, we don't just give them food or money. We really give them the tools to build a better future. That means vocational training. That means business development, financial counseling, debt restructure. Whatever stopgaps are keeping a family from reaching their potential or causing that crisis are the areas that we address. The Rambam says that the highest level of tzedakah is to help a person to help themselves stand on their own. And it's based on the pasuk. I don't have to tell you, Rav Matanki, of Ki Amucha Chicha. And b'chazakta bo, we are supposed to strengthen that person. By perpetuating poverty through handouts, we're not going to strengthen them. We're going to make them dependent. And the goal of Leman Achai through our programs of vocational counseling and financial counseling and business development and debt restructure and therapies for the couples, for the family, is to strengthen them so that they'll be able to stand on their own. And thank God, almost 20 years of proven success in that area. I have to share a story with you that is the convergence of both of our activities right now. A couple of days into the war, I received a request from a commander of the Central Command in Israel that he needed a large number of power banks to power cell phones and headlamps to put on the helmets for the soldiers going into Gaza. He said there's none left. And the Army gave out everything they had, again, because there were 350,000 reservists called up overnight. So I had a volunteer who was the Energizer Bunny, and he found a source for me. He said, I found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I ordered them for you. You just have to pay. I said, okay, send me the invoice. He sent me the invoice by phone, and it's made out to the name Brad. I said, I can't make a payment of tens or hundreds of thousands of shekel to someone's Brad. I need it made in the name of our organization, Leman Achai. I said, please tell the company if they send me the invoice, I will make a bank transfer immediately. He calls me back 20 minutes later, very, very upset. He said, I called the company. They said, because you didn't have money and there's so many people demanding, they sold them to someone else. I called the company and I spoke to the woman who answered the phone and I explained the situation. So she says, I'm sorry, I didn't take this order. I said, I don't understand. An order of that scope, don't give it away before you speak to someone. I said, but I couldn't pay it. She says, I didn't take the order. The Menahel, the manager of the company, took this order because it's so large. Try to speak to him, but it won't do you any good. We sold them already. She hands me over to him, and I said, this is Avrohom. I said in Hebrew, this is Avrohom Leventhal from Leman Achai. He goes, Harav Leventhal? Zeh Yoshua. Yoshua was a client of Leman Achai 5 years ago. And his family was having serious financial issues, and he went through our program. Today, he is the Menahel, the manager of this big company. He said, I had no idea it was you. I saw the name Brad. I didn't know who Brad was. He goes, what do you need? I said, Yoshua, your secretary told me you're out. He goes, what do you need? I said, I told him what I needed. He said, I have a warehouse in Beersheba. If you can have someone there in 2 hours, pick it up and you'll have whatever you'll need. We'll discuss payment later. And thank God, 2 hours later, the commander got his power banks and his headlamps. And it was a beautiful story, the convergence of the Manachai, of our daily mandate and our wartime efforts. And there are other stories very similar where we met people across the country who had benefited from Leman Achai and now came to our aid during this time of war.
What's the projection for Israeli economy and its impact on people as a result of the war? Do you expect to have more people needing Leman Achai's classic service?
So that's something we're really thinking about seriously. Number one, from the families that are affected by the war, who've been away from their homes and businesses and jobs for 4 months, and the average person on the street. Why? Taxes have gone up. Some of the dispensation for taxes have been removed from gasoline and other things. What people in America may not realize, or maybe do, is that what's going on with the Houthis who are firing on ships, mean that ships are taking a different way to travel to Israel. And that means that it takes twice as long for our products to get here, and the price goes up. The price of fuel has gone up. Everything affects the economy. The workforce is either a workforce from Palestinian Arabs who are not allowed to work any longer, or a reservists who are on the front lines. So there are businesses and public transportation that's also affected, and this all trickles down to the economy itself. The projection is hard to say. We know there are going to be difficult times coming, and we're trying to plan as best as possible with our families and with communities to prepare for what we hope is not the worst, but certainly a difficult time ahead.
And currently, the people who have been evacuated, a lot of them I hear are being able to move back to communities, but they've been out of their homes and away from their jobs for so long. Is something happening to help them overcome?
Yes. So the government is talking about it, but actually there are some individual politicians, mayors of cities, who are real heroes. Someone I have to point out, because we work very closely with Sderot. We have a regional office in Sderot for the South, which of course has been closed since the first day of the war. Alon Davidi, the mayor of Sderot, with whom I met the other night to discuss this issue. Some families are coming back to Sderot. Stores are starting to open slowly, but it's going to be a process. And some people don't want to come back to their communities. They want to start new in an area that they feel safer. So I met with the mayor, and we're going to continue next week, most likely, of programs of financial help, how to restart businesses, how to rejuvenate businesses, perhaps how to retrain people. This happened during Corona, when there were certain professions like tour guides who were seriously affected by Corona, and we worked in order to, to help them adjust and pivot during that time. So I'm working with. I also met yesterday with the mayor of Beit Shemesh. Beit Shemesh is a growing population. It's the fastest growing city in Israel. We're already there with the infrastructure. We're there in Sderot, and we have the families from the north as well. We're trying to get people together, financial experts, business people, to see what can we do to stem that tide of financial crisis.
In terms of the core services of Leman Achai, are they still operating? Do you have staff or people in the Army?
Fully. Our services have not dropped an iota. As a matter of fact, they've picked up a little bit because of the financial situation. Our leaders, our lay leaders, our Rabbanim said, you have a mandate and you cannot detract from that mandate at all. You must continue your daily work of Lamana Chai. And thanks to volunteers, our core of, again, almost 500 volunteers, we've been able to fill those gaps that were needed by the staff that's doing our daily mandate.
Well, can you give an example? A person comes in, they're not able to pay rent. They are having difficulty with food. How does Lamana Chai differ from a food bank or other kind, or a chesed that just gives out loans or gives out grants?
So we have an intake. The family comes and they meet with a social worker, a caseworker, and there's an intake. What's their expenses? What's their income? Or is there something unusual, a medical situation, or something else that is causing them to have the financial difficulty? Are they unemployed? Are they underemployed? Whatever is the issue at hand, that's addressed by our team. At that point, we decide, do they need retraining? Do they need debt restructure? And they work on a regular basis with their social workers. Now, as far as handouts, there is the idea that if you feed a man a fish, you fed him for today. If you teach them how to fish, you fed them for life. I add to that the following, that if you don't feed them while they're learning, they'll starve. So we have a comprehensive material aid program, which includes food vouchers to grocery stores. Again, there's no stigma because everyone uses them, just like the script in America. We help with critical bills, and we help with paying other bills and other expenses while they're in the program of financial rehabilitation. That way, it's almost like a carrot and a stick. They have the motivation to keep on the program. Generally, we shoot for 3 years or less that a family's on the program. If a family needs a little bit more, but they're staying with our plans, then we keep them longer. And most often, the families take less than 3 years to get on their feet. And it's something that trickles down. I want to give you a statistic that I don't want to say we're proud of, because Gaiva is not something you should have, but something we're grateful for. In the world at large, almost 80%, 4/5 of second generation of impoverished people end up impoverished themselves. It's a cycle of poverty. It's a culture of poverty. Ironically, the 20% that are not are fabulously successful. We did a survey of 1,000 of our families over the past several years, just to see, across the board. And we were very grateful to see that almost that same 80% of our second generation are financially independent and on their own. And almost all of them credit it to the culture of standing on your own, and what they learned from Lamana Chai through their parents.
So if Lamana Chai was founded in 2000, and currently you're serving 600 to 700 families, and you have people cycling through 2 to 3 years. Do you have any idea of how many people over the years, how many families you've been able to help?
Yes, so it's again, we've grown from year to year. The number is reaching close to 9,000. 9,000 families. The reason we know is that every family that comes in, we don't just give them what they need. We have a file on them, and they have a number, and we know what the numbers are up to. And it's approaching 9,000 families that have come through our doors and have received that love, that hug, and the tools to cope from Lamana Chai.
And you have offices in Sderot. You're in Ramat Beit Shemesh. Where else are you located?
So we have another office in Sderot, as I said. It's primarily Sderot, our peripheral programs of Lamana Chai, like our dentistry and certain other social programs. But our office in Beit Shemesh, and right now, it's very small. It's 200 meters, 2,000 square feet, crowded together with our volunteers and our employees and our families. We're hoping, the government has given us a tract of land to build on, not the building itself, and we're calling that the International Chesed Center. So, but people come from all over the country. We had a family come from Katzrin. They took public transportation, took them over 3 hours to get there, but they were so dedicated to changing their situation, and we saw that they came. One of the silver linings in the cloud of Corona was Zoom, as we're doing right now. And we discovered that we could work with a lot of our families, our client families, through Zoom, especially if it's financial counseling, if it's therapy, job training, can all be done today remotely. And that has enabled us to really expand to almost everywhere in Israel. There are very few places that we don't have families that have come to Lamana Chai.
And you're now, I just want to go back to the fact that you're in Kikara Chatufim. Could you pan the camera so we can see that?
Yes. If you bear with me for a minute, and I'll give you the Dramamine. I'll give you a tour here. So this is the actual square behind me. You can see. It's pretty quiet right now. There are tents. And in the tents, because the weather is not so great, there are families that will meet with people. There are people who come to give, to leave notes, to leave flowers. They're selling and giving out yellow ribbons for people to wear until everyone comes home. And again, right now, a lot of the families are not here. Many of the families are going worldwide to lobby the cause. I understand some were in the UN in the past weeks, and some went to The Hague because of the what's going on in The Hague. But there are families who come and they meet and they want to tell their stories, and they appreciate the love, the hug, the concern that people here come to see. And again, it's this feeling of unity. We say here in Israel now, Yachad Ninatzeach. Together we will be victorious, and we're seeing that. There's really no more us and them. Everyone is together. So behind me now, I'm going to show you, this is the table that's set, a setting for each one of the hostages until they come home. And there are stickers or butterflies, like plastic butterflies on each setting as a reminder for who the hostages are. There are pictures all over the place of the various hostages. There are cards and notes that people are leaving. Again, people come through. It's very, it's in the middle of Tel Aviv, but you can tell it's not very noisy. At least I'm not hearing the noise. Maybe you're hearing more than I am. For people who are coming,
and I see over your shoulders,
what's going on.
Over your shoulders is the large tent where families of the Chatufim of the
correct. I'm going to come
meet, and then there's smaller tents as well where there'll be smaller gatherings.
Right. So this is the large one behind me. And you see some of the things that there's bring them home, and there's all the pictures. And by the way, it's not only the hostages of October 7th, it's other people who were taken, and bodies of soldiers and others that have been kept in Gaza even for years, that we're demanding, give us back our sons and daughters.
And even at this time, so it's 8:30 at night in Israel, people are still just coming and seeing the various art installations. It's right outside the major art museum in Tel Aviv.
Correct.
So there's a lot of art installations, and people are just quiet.
People are quiet, very somber, and it's raining, by the way. People are still coming, and it's very introspective. People are looking, you see, they go from tent to tent, they go from wall to wall, looking, just leaving notes. I saw a couple of people put notes on various places, and there's different there are different manifestations. There's somewhere the pictures of the hostages. Some of them are drawings of the hostages. There's like a collage with all the pictures together. Then there are the individual ones, which we've seen around the world on telephone poles and walls. Unfortunately, some of them ripped off, not here, Baruch Hashem, in Israel. But it's a very interesting place. Yesterday I was in the site of the Nova, the rave, and it was also raining and cloudy, and this somber feeling. There must have been close to 1,000 people there, buses and whatever, and you could hear a pin drop. You could hear the raindrops because everyone is just looking and seeing what has become the new Auschwitz, the new Babi Yar in Jewish history, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the last one.
If people want to help in the different efforts of chesed that you're doing now, what's the best way for them to connect?
Okay, excellent. So we have our website. Our regular website has a banner specifically for the war projects and programs. Some of those programs and projects are specific to soldiers. Some of them are specific to the displaced families. The website explains, when you click, we call it the Here For You. The Here For You is here for the you, meaning the soldiers, the families, and the Bugaisim, the families of the reservists. And Here For You also means you in Chul, who we know are with us. We know you're with us. It's for you, how you can also come and volunteer. I had people from all over the world who've been volunteering for us in our war supply room, have gone with me to the displaced families. met with some of the families that we're helping. We've been helping about 15 families, in addition to everything, who were directly hit on October 7th. Widows, orphans, people who were injured, helping them as well. So the website has all the options of what you can do.
And the website is lemanachai.org,
Correct.
LEMAAN.
And achai.org.
lemanachai.org. Rabbi Leventhal, our time, believe it or not, is up. I truly appreciate your efforts on behalf of this. I look forward to seeing you in person. And thank you so very, very much for adding the additional layer and being where you're at right now, so we have a sense of what's happening as well.
Okay. Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure. I thank you always to be with you, and I apologize for the weather and the noise, but I felt that it would bring you even more with us. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see you soon.
Amen. See you very soon, and thank you for everything you do. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Call to.